joining us right now in a first on Bloomberg is a key member of the President's Export Council, Commerce Secretary Gary Locke. And Mr. Secretary, great to have you here with Matt and myself. I guess the question is this the best way to really create jobs at this point? Because jobs are really the big problem right now in the economy. Well,
anytime we're able to help U.S. companies sell more, it means that they're going to produce more, and when they produce more, they hire more workers. And in fact, so far this year, the economic growth has really been fueled by exports equaling domestic consumption as part of our economic recovery. Exports really account for almost 10 million jobs in the United States, almost 11% of our GDP. And export jobs pay almost 15% more than the typical job on average. And so we need to help American companies sell to the 95% of the world's consumers who live outside the borders of the United States. And as the CEOs and labor representatives that we heard from today as part of the President's first meeting of his Export Advisory Council, as they indicated, for those American companies to grow, for them to grow, produce more jobs, they've got to be able to sell all around the world.
Secretary Locke, it sounds really good, and I think it reads really well on paper, but I talked with Nobel laureate and Princeton economics professor Paul Krugman yesterday, and he said this is a slump that affects the entire world, and he says we can't have export booms unless we can find customers on Mars, so that relying on an export-led recovery, it's not relevant. I mean, where are the customers going to come from when you look around the globe? Everybody is struggling.
Well, that is true, but American companies and their brands are so highly desired and in great demand all around the world. In some of the developing countries, as they try to, for instance, clean up their water, fight air and water pollution, feed their people, take care of the health problems of their residents, a natural is American technology, goods, and services. So there's a great demand from these emerging developing countries just to raise their standard of living, and they're looking to the United States for those products and services. But we've got to do a better job, and obviously the recovery of the U.S. economy is not going to rest solely on exports, but that's a key component. And if we want American companies to grow, especially when companies from all around the world are starting to also sell to these emerging developing countries, if we sit back and do nothing, those other companies from around the world will get the customers, will get the market share, and then we lose out opportunities for American companies and American workers.
Mr. Secretary, why are we then dragging our feet on key trade agreements? I mean, why doesn't this administration try and be a little bit more liberal as far as trade is concerned? It's shown time and time again to produce more export revenue.
Well, that's why the President has been very consistent in saying that he supports these 3 trade agreements.
Why not sign them and finish them?
Well, no, it's not a matter of the United States President signing them. It's actually having to send them up to the Congress. And if you talk to the U.S. Trade Representative Ambassador Ron Kirk, he'll tell you that there's a myth that somehow when President Obama took office that these 3 trade agreements had bows wrapped around them ready to be delivered to the Congress. For instance, on Panama, there are tax issues that were still unresolved, and there was a problem of a change in the administration in Panama that prevented these deals from being concluded. In Korea, the President is going to Korea in November. He would like this finalized, an agreement ready to be submitted to the Congress by the time he goes to Korea. So that is a top priority. But the big problem with Korea is that the Koreans have excluded American automobile parts as well as American automobiles. Severe restrictions on the amount of American auto and auto parts that could go into Korea. We need to make sure that there's a level playing field for U.S. businesses. You know, the United States is so open to foreign products coming into the United States, and as the President said today, we in America expect fair treatment, same reciprocal treatment with respect to our goods that are then able to be sold into those other countries.
You know, we talk so much about enforcement, Mr. Secretary, and I was speaking with Dan Eikenton of the Cato Institute just a little bit ago. He said America is really one of the worst offenders as far as breaking trade agreements. For example, we were supposed to let Mexican long-haul truckers into the U.S. by 2000, and we continue to drag our feet on that. Is that also a congressional problem?
Well, the Congress a year and a half ago ended the demonstration project that allowed Mexican trucks to come into the United States. And so then the Mexican government retaliated and put huge tariffs on a whole host of American-made goods going into Mexico. Secretary of Transportation Ray LaHood is working on a proposal that would meet the concerns of the members of Congress who imposed who ended the demonstration project and therefore started this trade war, and also meeting with the Mexican government to make sure that we have a program in place that will ensure that the Mexican truck drivers coming into the United States uphold the safety and regulations that are so important to American consumers and other people on the roads throughout the United States.
Secretary Locke, you and Matt were talking earlier about some of the specific trade deals out there, specifically Korea. What about the Colombia and Panama? The president earlier today said that his administration is working forward on those agreements, but why are they stalled?
Well, for instance, as I said earlier, with respect to, for instance, the Panama trade agreement, there is an issue of tax treatment that requires changes in Panamanian law. And when the president took office, in fact, last year, as we were working on this, there was a new administration, outgoing president in Panama, and an incoming new president, as well as a change in their Congress. And there was nobody to negotiate with who had that authority. And so that is now being resumed, and we're moving forward on that. Same thing with Colombia on the issue of violence against different sectors and the perception that there is not prosecution for those who are found guilty and known to be perpetrating these acts of violence. But the Korea is a major agreement that we must move forward with, and along with these other agreements, because we know that the European Union, Canada are entering into trade agreements with Korea and Colombia and Panama and other countries. And once those companies of those other countries are able to sell to, let's say, Korea, they form business relationships. And when the United States finally does approve a trade agreement with Korea, we can't just expect American companies to go to Korea and simply dislodge those European companies that have developed those relationships. So that's why we need to move as quickly as possible. That's why the president has instructed Ambassador Ron Kirk to really try to have this all done by the time the president goes to Korea this coming November.
All right, Commerce Secretary Gary Locke, thank you so much for finding time for us here at Street Smart. We appreciate it. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.